Hey everybody, Oak Norton here with Scripture Notes, and I just wanted to share something I learned this morning and had not really thought about before. I was reading in Mosiah 2, and in verse 33 here, it reads, "For behold, there is a woe pronounced upon him who listeth to obey that spirit, the evil spirit. For if he listeth to obey him, and remaineth and dieth in his sins, the same drinketh damnation to his own soul. For he receiveth for his wages an everlasting punishment, having transgressed the law of God, contrary to his own knowledge." Now, when I saw that, I thought, I wonder where else the word listeth appears in Scriptures. I could think of a couple of places, but I wanted to see, how prevalent it was. And so I did a search for the word listeth, and here were the results. I was actually surprised how few there were. So in John 3:8, talks about those that are born of the Spirit. It says, "The wind bloweth where it listeth, and you hear the sound thereof, but can't tell where it comes from and where it goes. So is everyone that is born of the Spirit." We just follow the Spirit, and it leads us places. And then in James 3:4, the winds, "Behold also the ships, which though they be so great, are driven of fierce winds, yet are they turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth." So, however the helm is turned, that's where the ship's going to go. But then there's these few verses in the Book of Mormon, which I thought was really interesting. There's a woe pronounced upon him who listeth to obey that spirit. Same chapter, a few verses later. "I say unto you, the man that doeth this, the same cometh out in open rebellion against God. Therefore he listeth to obey the evil spirit." And then in Alma, "Every man receiveth wages of him whom he listeth to obey." And this according to the words of the spirit of prophecy. And the last one here, "They shall not be beaten down by the storm at the last day, yea, neither shall they be harrowed up by the whirlwinds, but when the storm cometh, they shall be gathered together in their place, that the storm cannot penetrate to them. Yea, neither shall they be driven with fierce winds, whithersoever the enemy listeth to carry them." So what I found really interesting here is there's this word listeth appears only twice in the New Testament and 4 times in the Book of Mormon. And if I expand that, we can see that the 4 times, there's 2 in Mosiah, 2 in Alma. Now I thought, well, what does the word listeth mean? And so if we click into the Webster's 1828 dictionary here, we don't find listeth. But if I type list, and you start to go down through this list, or roll, I guess, so I don't use the word itself, the words that I noticed on here, listing is like listeth, and we'll go into the definition here in a minute, but I also saw listen and listener, and it made me realize something. So let's look at what the word list means. So there's a whole bunch of definitions for list, and when we hear list, we tend to think of this 5th one here, a roll or catalog, that is a row or line as a list of names, a list of books, list of articles. So it's a list. That's our common understanding of the word. But if we go down here further, you can see there's a lot of definitions, but the one I want to get to down here is in this list, verb intransitive. And it says properly to lean or incline, to be propense, hence to desire or choose. "Let other men think of your devices as they list." And then he shares that verse in John, "The wind bloweth where it listeth." So to list, in fact, this last one, in the language of seamen, an inclination to one side. The ship has a list to port. That's a great way of defining what list means. And so if we jump back here to our scriptures, we can see that these verses we just read talk about listing to one side. We're either listing to good or listing to evil. And so I wanted to expand my search and see how many different places a form of list appears. And interestingly, when I do a search, and I actually wanted to just see it in the Book of Mormon here to begin with. And so I did a search for list with a wild card. So it would pick up every variation, list, listeth, listen, listener, and so on. And what's interesting is we come down here into the Book of Mormon. One time in 1 Nephi, we get, let me go back here to the top, we get a list, okay? Where is it? Let me hit Control F and type list, and that's going to show us all of those with the browser highlight. So this is actually an Isaiah chapter. O house of Israel, listen, O isles. Now if we apply what we just learned about the root word definition, listen is to incline your ear, to lean into something and pay attention. So then we get one in Jacob, and then suddenly we're up here in Mosiah, and there are 4 verses that list is used in, and 3 of them right here are in King Benjamin's speech, Mosiah 2, verse 32, 33, and 37. I find that interesting. Mosiah 22:4 has listened and listen to my words, and I think that's probably Gideon talking to the king. Let's see here. Or Ammon. No, it is Gideon there. So if you haven't found me an unprofitable servant, or if you've found my words in any degree to have been of service, then listen to my words at this time. So he shares that. Looking down a little further, there's 3 in Alma, and 2 of them are in Alma chapter 3. One is in Alma chapter 26 that we already read. And then we've got 2 in Moroni. Now, I don't know why it is, but I just find it fascinating how words get used, particularly in the Book of Mormon. Because if Joseph Smith was making this up, he would have kind of a common vocabulary that he would use across the whole book to some extent. Now, Mosiah and Alma, they're fairly long books, but Nephi up here, 1st and 2nd Nephi, that's 50-some chapters combined. That's a lot longer than Mosiah, and what's really interesting to me is 3 of the 4 instances are in one chapter from one individual, King Benjamin, as he's giving his speech. So I just love to find these little tidbits as I'm studying. Now, what is a synonym for listen? Hearken is another one. I wonder where hearken appears. So in opposition to listen, which only has 11 verses in the Book of Mormon that it is found in, hearken appears in 93 verses. And let's just look at this distribution. 1st and 2nd Nephi, that's 42 instances, almost 1 per chapter. Jacob, there's 6, that's almost 1 per chapter. And I guess if we, I don't know if any of those are in Jacob 5, but that's, pretty good distribution across those chapters. We come down here to Mosiah and Alma, that is a lot less per chapter. Then it jumps back up in Helaman for its chapters, and you can see where the remaining ones are. I just find it fascinating that the text has such variety for one author who is supposedly writing this, if you believe that Joseph Smith made it up. And I just love to find these things. There are many more like this. And with the frequency tool, you can actually go in and see how many instances of a word appear in the text. So like in the Book of Mormon, 1,774 words appear only one time. Now, some of these are very similar. Like if I go down here, additional and additions, so that's a very closely related word. Admonition, admonitions, each of them only appears once. Admonishing. So there are some similarities there. But you look at some of the text that Joseph was using, and it's just remarkable on some of these words what is being used across the text. So Scripture Notes makes studying the text and looking for these kinds of things really easy and convenient. And so if you haven't tried it out, I'd encourage you to try it out. It is a different way to study, and it's very powerful. And I just invite you to check it out at scripturenotes.com.